Hi, this is Eric Martin with BoardGameGeek. I'm here with Sydney Engelstein from Stronghold Games, looking at Divvy Dice, or as Germans know it, Man muss auch können, which name you wisely did not keep on the Stronghold edition. I don't know how well this would market on store shelves.
It's fun to pronounce, but also difficult to pronounce.
Yes, ask for it by name. So I was hoping you could give a brief overview of Divvy Dice. What are we trying to do in the game? What does a turn look like? And then perhaps Lincoln and Nikki could actually play through a few turns to give a detailed demonstration of the game.
Yeah, sounds great. So Divvy Dice is the latest in Stronghold Games' roll and write line, and it has a real twist on sort of your traditional roll and write. If you're thinking, oh, you know, I play a lot of roll and writes, and one of the things is the games can get a little bit samey because you're always playing with the same sheet and you always have the same decisions to make every game. Divvy Dice really turns that on its head because it is a tableau building roll and write. So what you do on your turn is you have these little squares you can see down there. There's 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. Every player will have some of those in front of them in their own little grid. The game ends when you have a 3x3 grid of 9 squares. But over the course of the game, you'll be adding more. You start with 3, and over the course of the game, you'll gain more. And you'll be trying to complete each of those individual squares with its own individual task. So there are 2 different types of squares. The ones on top are scoring squares. If you manage to complete the goals on them, you'll score points based on their metrics. So the one that's being pointed at, it looks like, is for every completed square, you gain points. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's for every different type of bonus you have, you get points for that one. Some score you points for having squares of certain colors within your tableau. Some want you to have squares in rows in your tableau or colored squares in rows in your tableau. And they all score different points based on the difficulty of completing the challenge, which is the top half. The second type of square is the exact same in terms of having a challenge on the top half, but on the bottom half, instead of scoring you points, it can earn you special abilities that you can use 3 times over the course of the game. And there's several different special abilities. So the way that you fill in these cards over the course of the game is you go in a circle, like in most roll and writes, and you get the chance to roll all 5 of those dice. You can stick with the first roll you get on those 5 dice, or you can re-roll up to 2 times, saving any dice you already like from each of your rolls by putting them aside on the construction area on the box. Okay. The downside to re-rolling your dice multiple times is that every time you choose to re-roll your dice, all of the passive players who aren't taking a turn get to choose one of the dice you just re-rolled and use it on their own grids to help them fill in and complete their own goals. So the more you wait on trying to get the perfect roll, the more your opponents can take advantage on their off turn and work towards completing their own board. Okay. On your turn, the only 2 things you can do with your dice is either fill in a square completely or buy a new square. So if you can't get the dice to line up to fill in every single remaining square that's left on one of your goals, then you're not allowed to use them. And as you can see, some of these goals have 7, 8 spaces to be filled in, which can't possibly be done by 5 dice on one turn. So filling in these dice using your off turn, where you can fill in numbers 1 at a time without completing squares, is crucial to be able to score points in this game.
Okay.
You sounded like you wanted to cut in with something. Sorry if I was talking over you.
No, we're good. I didn't know if Lincoln and Nikki want to start. Now, I believe initially you have not a draft, but you draw 2 cards of each type and you start with 3 of those.
So you get 2 scoring squares, and you get 2 non-scoring squares, 2 scoring squares and 2 special ability squares. And of those 4, you can pick any combination of 3. And then you set up your grid in any way you want, as long as they're touching on either a side or a corner.
Okay. And I guess whatever you're going to start with, well, it's somewhat random, and then you just have to make the best of it.
Me too, and you too.
Right, but there is a little bit of choice. You can see which types of bonuses you've been dealt if you're interested in keeping those. A lot of the different scoring cards have metrics that interact with, like, yellow squares score. So maybe if you get one of those and also several yellow squares, you might be more interested in keeping that because it sets up your strategy well. You also might want to take ones that have goals that differ from each other. So you're more likely to be able to use the dice that people roll on other turns, because if you fill in all your squares or somebody makes a roll that you don't have a place on your board to put, then you just waste your opportunity to fill in an extra number and you're playing an inefficient game.
Right. You want to mooch as much as you can.
That's why it's called Divvy Dice, because the dice are for everyone. Yeah, so you can make them a column, you can make them a row, they could be an L, they can even be diagonal from each other. You're allowed to set them up in any sort of configuration that you want, because spatial elements can be important to the scoring of some of these cards that want cards adjacent to them to be completed before they score, for instance, or cards in a full row to be completed before they score.
Okay.
Cool. So on the first turn, you roll the dice. It's pretty self-explanatory that all the different goals require numbers to be filled in. If a square has a number in it, if you roll that number, you can mark off that square. If a square has a color in it, the die of that color has to have that number written into the square. If a square has a color and a number, you need to roll that number on that color die before you can mark off that square. And remember that the only thing you can do on your turn is either entirely fill in one of these squares or buy a new card from the market, which is this middle row. And the way that you do that is by having 3 of a kind, or 4 of a kind, depending on where the square is. You can see in the middle, the ones all the way to the right cost 3, and the ones farther to the left cost 4. They slide down when you buy one and fill in from the left, so they're more expensive over there because the fresh squares that nobody has been wanting to buy so far. So with this roll of 3 1s and 2 2s, you could just stay, buy one of the 3 cards and add it to your tableau if you want, or you could re-roll any number of dice you choose, putting aside dice that you want to keep on the construction site.
Right, because Nikki can't complete any of her cards now, so you have to re-roll or buy, and that's it.
Right. Dice that are put away on the construction site are not available for passive players to use. Only dice that are re-rolled. So even if you take a re-roll, by putting aside dice that you are even mildly interested in, you lessen other players' ability to take advantage of the dice you're rolling, because there's fewer potentially useful options being rolled. So now that those 2 dice have been re-rolled, the off player can take one of the numbers, so a 1 or a 6, and fill them in on any of their squares where they're legal. So they could put a 1 in that yellow, which is a bad idea because those are less than signs, so that one wants to get larger. But
you would never complete that card. Yes.
Yeah. So you put the 6 over there, and now you just have to have the rest of those numbers filled in. And as soon as that card has all 4 numbers legally put in, you check off that little circle next to the B, and that means that bonus is available to you for the rest of the game for 3 uses of it. That's what those 3 circles are, and you'll mark them off as you use them. That bonus lets you treat a die as a die of any color. So for instance, you could use that blue 6 and fill in the pink square all the way to the right on your middle card, and you wouldn't have to wait for a really high number to come up on a pink die specifically. And it makes it much easier to fill in those cards. But remember that you only have maximum 9 cards for the entire game. So if you go too hard on bonuses that help you fill in your squares, then you won't score as many points.
Okay. So now Lincoln can choose a 1 or a 3. Nikki's got 4 1s and 3 3s, 1 3. So I believe there's actually another way to use the dice too. If you can't fill in a card, you choose not to buy a card, you can actually use 2 of the dice that you roll, just as sort of a
So there's a final
compensation.
option called chance, which either happens if you never got the opportunity to fill in a card, or you never got the right number of triples or quadruples in order to buy a card from the market. You can go to chance. You can also choose to go to chance if you're interested in taking that action, but you can only take it once you've re-rolled twice. So it requires you to give the maximum amount of dice to your opponents. What you can do in chance is you can pick 2 of your dice, any 2 of your dice, and just write their numbers on your squares that you currently have in front of you. So if you're like, I really need this orange 3 and this green 4, I'm just gonna, stick with them and write those 2 in. You're allowed to do that. It doesn't need to complete a square. The other thing you can do is you can take the top card of either the victory point or the bonus deck blind and either add it to your tableau, or you can choose to discard it, but then you've wasted your turn and you haven't accomplished anything. So those are the 2 options for if you either don't want to fill in a square or buy something, or you don't manage to.
Okay. I like the way you say that. You have accomplished nothing.
So that's not a legal play because you haven't filled in completely any one of your squares. You can choose to take 2 of those ones if you would like as your chance action and fill in, say, the orange square there and the 1 on your yellow square. But when you're the active player, any action you take with your squares has to complete a goal entirely. And you can complete more than 1 goal. Yes, so you can buy a card from the market and add it to your tableau. You can complete more than 1 goal if you've set yourself up where on off turns you've left, 1 box on this, 1 box on this. If you roll your dice and you have the capacity to fulfill multiple goals, you're allowed to do that all at once. But every single box you mark off on one of your squares has to be entirely completing that square while you're the active player.
Okay. All right. So while Lincoln's taking his turn, Sydney, maybe we can talk a little bit about what else is coming from Stronghold. You had the recently completed Kickstarter for the Terraforming Mars Big Box.
Yeah.
Congrats on that. That's was not surprising, I guess I should say, that there are so many fans of the game.
It's definitely something we've been working on and looking forward to for a really long time. But it was the culmination of a long amount of work. So we're really excited to see people so excited about it. We have a new Kickstarter soon for Avalon Quest Deluxe, which is actually sort of a 2-in-1. Not only is it a new expansion to Avalon that brings in 4-player element and all the way up to 10, changes the game and the way you play it with all new roles, all new special abilities. It also, the Kickstarter will include every single expansion that Avalon has ever had, all packaged into 1 box, and updated art, updated component art, and all of that. So it's going to look really nice in addition to having brand new content that we've never had before. And that's going to be on Kickstarter pretty soon. And then in addition to that, Gen Con is coming up, and we have a big Gen Con bundle sale where you can get 5 games for as cheap as $60 plus shipping. And those games are all of our big summer release titles like Aeon's End, Divvy Dice is on there, our other roll and write that's coming out, Ripple Rush is on there, Oldest Night, Magic Money, Scapegoat, all kinds of games that we're meant to, come out with over the course of the summer, which obviously the schedule's got a bit delayed on that. But instead, because of that, we're doing them all at once, and it's a huge sale. You can get games for way, way cheaper. And if you were interested in picking up any of our line, I really recommend doing the bundle sale because we have such great titles in there, and you can find something you'll be really interested in and save a ton on MSRP. While getting just all the games you might be interested in all at once.
That definitely seems like a good marketing idea, given that we've lost all the conventions. There's no sort of buzz created from anything like that. And so it's a way to possibly get people talking about games that they'll add on a couple more or get things they wouldn't have expected and then discover something.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there's a lot of, small titles that don't have the marketing buildup that some of our bigger, more well-known games have, but they're really fun and we really want to get them out to people. So we hope that by making them really accessible to purchase with games you might have already had your mind on. Maybe you come into, you're like, I love the Sherlock Files. I'm definitely getting Sherlock Files too, but I haven't heard of these other games. Like, well, they're amazing. So we want people to have an opportunity to get games they wouldn't have thought they might like into their home because all the games in the bundle sale are really, really fun.
Sherlock Files is interesting just because I know it originated from a Spanish publisher, and they've had incredible success with it. I was talking with them at the Game Fair in Nuremberg, just around the world in all these different languages. And I know it seems like maybe people in the U.S. haven't really discovered the game yet, or it seems like it hasn't got the buzz here that it's gotten elsewhere in terms of the excitement. So I don't know if people would be looking for that, or maybe that's something that could be Lincoln and Nikki maybe cover on a game night in the future, just because I know it's like the playthrough experience that you really want to highlight. Actually, wait a minute. Didn't you guys do Death on the 4th of July?
So fast and so accessibly. I think that, as more of them come out and the word of mouth really begins, then people will start to realize just what a great game Sherlock Files is, because it is really the experience of a mystery book packed into a board game. Your Encyclopedia Brown or 5-Minute Mysteries, where you get to read the entire story and then you try and piece together what happened. It scratches that mystery itch that I know I feel constantly, that a lot of sort of Sherlock branded board games get a little bogged down in, time and movement and more complex mechanics than you need. Sherlock Files is just distilled mystery puzzle solving. There's one plot and you just got to figure out what's going on in that one plot from the clues that are presented to you. And it's such a great, activity for a family or a game group. The entire thing is all about table talk. It's all about discussion. And every time I've played it, I've come away with a story or, a funny memory about somebody when they had that lightning moment of realizing exactly what was going on. It's such a great experience.
Yeah, it's a good mention with the Encyclopedia Brown and the 5-Minute Mysteries. That's like a direct line to 10-year-old Eric. Yes, because as you say, the memories
10-year-old Cindy too. That's what she was doing.
Yes, those stories do stick with you. And yes, I've brought them for my son, and yeah, you sort of continue on and experience that with them. So yeah, we've got a few minutes more.
Such a great communal way to do that.
Yeah, we have a few minutes more. I don't know if you have something else to talk about, or we can kibitz about what Nikki and Lincoln are doing. I think Lincoln's having some success getting things in there. Nikki's building up quite an array of cards.
Yeah, so Divvy Dice also has a solo mode, which I can go over really fast since we're sort of seeing what the multiplayer looks like. In solo mode, you have a point goal that you're trying to accomplish within a certain number of rounds that you're the active player. And the way that the passive dice are done is it actually counts backwards from how many rerolls you took during your round. So if you rolled once and you stuck with the original roll you did, to mimic the fact that you're not giving your opponents very many dice to use, then on the off turn, you get to roll 5 dice and pick 3 of them. If you re-rolled once, you roll 5 dice, you only get to pick 2. And if you take both re-rolls or a chance action, you only get to pick 1 die in between your active turns. And the goal is just to maximize the amount of points you can get and try and hit goals in ascending order. There's the lowest level, and then you can ramp up once you become a Divvy Dice expert and try and beat rank 1, which I think is 90 points in 15 rounds.
That's right. I remember I tried once and it was bomb. It's definitely a game that you get better at, I think, as you play more, as you see how certain cards work together well. You get a better idea of how certain cards can hamstring you if you're trying to have overlapping goals.
Yeah, it has that roll and write quality of needing to really get in there and understand when you transition from cards that help you get other cards into cards that help you get points, and which cards, how much you should commit to doing a certain card versus spreading out over many different cards. I know the first time I played Divvy Dice, I was so proud of myself because I could fill in an entire square, and then the dice went all the way around the table and I realized my entire board is filled up. I'm wasting all of these dice that I could be using and I'm hemorrhaging points. And so unlike most roll and writes where you're only thinking about maximizing your own board, there's a new quality of I need to leave myself open or else I'm not going to be able to take advantage of potential points that I could be earning on other people's turns.
Yes. And if you take cards too quickly, then you end the game, but you haven't actually filled anything in.
And then you haven't accomplished anything.
That's right.
Yeah, so the game,
start with 0.
As soon as one player buys their 9th card, and then you get one more round entirely around the table for everyone to try and finish off everything they possibly can.
Okay. Before we close, user was asking, where and when can they find out which games are included in the $60 sale?
The Gen Con sale should be going up right when Gen Con Online begins, so in about a week. So keep an eye on that. We should be posting some more information about it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sydney, for an overview of Divvy Dice, a look at a few other things coming from Stronghold. Congratulations on your new position. Do you get official title as president?
And thank you for having me.
Yeah. Do you get official title as president yet?
No, I'm director of game development.
Okay. I didn't know if you have to behead Steven and officially, officially take his position that way.
They might make me president if I did that.
It couldn't hurt to try, right? That's what we say.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much,
On
Sydney.
that lovely note, thank you very much for having me.
There's another question.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we'll see you again another show.
When is this available in the States?
Divvy Dice is part of the Gen Con bundle. So it will be available when the rest of it is in a week at Virtual Gen Con.
All right. Thank you very much.